Hey everybody, it's Greg Harrelson here with Century 21, the Harrelson Group. And of course, I have my partner and co-host, Abe Safa, also with Century 21, the Harrelson Group. And we want to bring to you another episode of the Myrtle Beach Real Estate TV. We are definitely winding down the year. We're getting into that holiday season. And there's some good information that we think that you need to know about the local real estate market. But Abe, before we get started, thank you again for joining me.
Hey, Greg, always a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Well, it is the week of Thanksgiving, and we're still working, and there's still things going on, even though a lot of people, start to ask us questions whether or not, anybody buys or sells during that. Do you get that from time to time?
All the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually like, well, have I missed the selling season? I mean, does anybody buy during the holidays? What is your thoughts on that? I'm just kind of curious, what is your position, or, what can we share with the audience about that?
Well, I mean, it's not so much a thought, it's a fact. So I look at the numbers, right?
Okay.
I look at how many transactions happened in the month of December, January, February, and then relative to what they happened in the spring, right? Now, there's no question, come January is going to be the slowest month of the year. Okay, but there's still going to be sales. I haven't pulled up that number, but I want to say somewhere in the range of maybe 600 homes sell in the month of January.
Mm-hmm.
I looked up last year's December. Okay, 1,094 homes sold last year in the month of December.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to kind of put that in perspective, if you took all of last year, all of 2021, that was the fourth highest month the entire year. The only months that beat December last year were March, April, and June.
Okay, so I need some clarity on something.
Okay, yeah.
I think this is very interesting because it's got my mind thinking about something that I was gonna bring up today. But I think you're actually revealing a pattern. I just got to make sure I'm clear on it. So if you're saying 1,094 homes sold, we're talking about last December, everybody. Then what that means is those things went under contract probably at the end of October and November and closed in December. Is that correct?
That is correct. Those are closed sales in December. Yeah. So they had to go pending earlier.
Okay. So if you're saying that why are you saying, and I'm assuming it's because you're looking at historical data, that January will be the lowest month for closings?
It typically is because, you got the week of Thanksgiving holidays, you got the week of Christmas holidays. So there's going to be less going under contract during that time and then closing in January. But it's still a decent number. Like if you look at the busiest month of the year, I want to say it usually makes up about 12% of our entire production for the whole year. When you look at January, it might be 6%, might be 5.5%.
Yeah.
Right? So there is never a dead month. There's always going to be transactions happening.
Yeah. And a lot of that decrease is going to come like the few days around Thanksgiving and the few days around Christmas. Those will be days, a few days around, not the entire month, but a few days around. And those days matter. Like if a total, like December, instead of having 4 weeks of selling time, you really have 3 weeks because you got half of a week for Christmas, half of a week for Thanksgiving. So those numbers are reflected on really only 3 weeks of selling versus 4 weeks of selling in a normal month. But here's the key that I think is very, very important and overlooked by real estate agents, or I should say, not communicated enough to the consumer. Because I will have somebody ask me, well, don't you think it's a waste of time to have the property on the market in December since nobody's buying? Well, the truth is people are buying. But the other truth is this, that it takes less showings to get a property sold in December. So let's take June. We might be a big month for sales, June or July, but like you have to have hypothetically 10 showings to get an offer. But in December, maybe it only takes 3 showings to get an offer. And what's the difference? The difference is this. The buyers who are looking to buy in December have more motivation. They have so many things they can be doing. They could be, or at the end of November and December, they could be traveling. They could be spending time with family. They could be shopping for presents. There's so many other things that they could be doing, but they're choosing to continue to look at properties during this holiday time. Typically, that means that buyer has to buy. It's not a want, it's a need or a have to. Like they got a job relocation, they already sold their house, they're trying to find something while their kids are out on the holiday vacation. So the motivations of the buyers in the market are higher, and the number of listings sometimes decreases, which means stronger buyer demand, lower competition. For those that are selling in December, a lot of times they can get their properties sold faster, for more money, and not have to be inconvenienced with a boatload of showings.
Yeah, there's no question about it. The buyers are going to be more serious. You're not going to get a lot of tire kickers during the holidays. But you said something towards the end of that I think is really important that we should emphasize. The inventory is going to be significantly, you mentioned June, you mentioned December. Inventory in December is going to be significantly lower than it will be in June. So what that means is you're going to have a lot less competition out there to compete with. So chances are you're going to get a higher price because you've got serious buyers looking. You've got less competition out there. They're looking at less homes because there's not as many homes out there to look at, and you're more likely to get a higher price during that time. So it's still December is still a solid month to sell. I really, to me, what's most important is I typically will look at when I'm talking to a seller and trying to determine when the best time to hit the market. I usually look at what's happening in their community, how much competition is there, not so much the month of the year. The month of the year is really not that big of a factor for me as opposed to what the competition is.
Yeah, and for those of you, I'm sorry if you've got any, if there was any kind of breakup in the communication. I know, Abe, it was breaking up. I'm not sure if it's me or if it's you, but I think we're okay now. But yes, at the end of the day, if you're wanting to sell your property and you're concerned that the holidays is a bad time, that is a myth. That's a myth, and it's incorrect. Now, it doesn't mean that if you don't want to sell the property, you should be rushing your property on the market. We're not trying to convince you to do that. We just want to make sure that we are communicating properly to those that have a desire to get something done right now. I just had a buyer talked with one of the agents in our office and who has a buyer, and the buyer just fit exactly what I'm sharing with here right now. They want to buy a property and they need to close this year, and they need to buy it and close it this year for tax purposes. That's what I mean by a buyer has to buy versus like they are going to write a contract probably in the next couple of days because they have to buy something. They're not going to drag their feet. They're not going to, that's the buyer that they're going to make some seller an offer. The seller's going to counter, and they're not even going to play around with like trying to nickel and dime the seller. They're just going to agree because the tax benefits outweigh, $5,000 or $6,000 more in sales price.
Yeah, sorry about
That's
that.
what I call a quality buyer.
I'm not sure if you heard my phone ring. I thought I silenced it, but sorry about that.
That's all right. You're human. Yeah. You're human.
So another quick number, Greg, is the number of condos sold in December last year was 673 condos. So even the condos, there's going to be some transactions happening all through the rest of the holidays and into next year.
Yeah. Got it. Talk about mortgage rates. I think they've come down a little bit, right?
They have. We had that big drop that one day, not this past Thursday, the Thursday before that, where it dropped, I think 60 basis points, if I remember correctly. So 0.67%. And it kind of stayed there. It's fluctuating up 1% or 2%, but it's kind of really lingering around the 6.62, 6.64 range. So I love that it's below 7%, and it seems to be kind of staying there for now.
And we're seeing a slight little boost in, at least I'm seeing a slight little boost in showings, in offers, and in sales right now. I mean, it's not going gangbusters again, but it's just amazing to see the correlation between a small little drop in the interest rate and activity. And, in a way, it was probably really good that we saw 7% or higher. It's probably good that it hit there because it went over 7, then a 6.62 doesn't seem that bad to a buyer. Just like, and 5.75 sounded horrible in the past, when the interest rates were in the 3s and 4s, but when it went to 6s, If it went back to 5.75, people will be like, well, it's not that bad. So because we saw that high, it makes today's high not seem quite as bad, and people get, it's stimulated a little bit of activity. It's still much higher than it probably needs to be in order to create a lot of activity. But I think the fact that we hit 7 made some people feel like, oh, wait, now it's time to move in at 6.6, that type of thing. So that's just the kind of feeling that we're getting on the, in the streets while we're working with buyers and sellers.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a spike in activity with buyers, even online activity, seen a spike in people viewing homes online. And it makes a big deal. The number starting with a 6 instead of a 7 really brought some buyers back into the market. And just like you said, because of that 7%, once we registered that put a new benchmark for people. That's kind of like the number they're scared of. So now 5 point something sounds really enticing. I know there's buyers out there. If it gets in the 5s, they're ready to jump on something. So
and which we can do with the 2-1 buy down, right? Like if the published rate is 6.62 right now, heck, with a 2-1 buy down, we can get a buyer probably a 6.6 interest rate for at least 12 months, and then it goes up by 1 to 5.6 the next 12 months. Those are really enticing. So the reality is this is a good time for sellers to take advantage of the market.
Yeah, I mean, if you are out there buying and you're looking at property, make sure your agent talks to you about that, what a 2-1 interest rate buy down is, because that's something that can really help you. Because basically what you're doing is you're lowering your interest payments over the next 2 years. And then by then, 2 years from now, mortgage rates should be back in the 5s, maybe low 5s, hopefully. And then you can refinance at that point. So make sure you talk to your agent about that if you are looking to buy right now. So a couple of things. Obviously, the title of today's conversation was days on the market increasing. For the longest time, that number was just non-existent. Days on the market was like nothing. As soon as something hit the market, it was gone. So we've seen a rise nationally. I think nationally right now, that number's up to 21 days on the market. And it was in single digits for a long time. In our market, if you look at all the single family homes right now, resale single family homes, of everything on the MLS right now, the average is 80 days. And the median is 61 days. There's 2,164 homes on the market right now, not including new construction. And the average days on the market is 80 days. If you look at condos, it's 78 days instead of 80 days. Yeah. So the number's gone up. It's still, relatively speaking, you go back to 2019, that number was 140 days. So it's still a really good number, right? It's just not as on fire as it was, 6 months ago, 9 months ago.
Yeah, and just for those out there listening, just so you to know, I've seen where the average days on market is over 6 months. So I look at this and say, gosh, we're approaching a more normal market. Like over 6 months was definitely a softer market. It wasn't the crashing market; it was just a soft market, But when I look at 78 and 80, it's actually kind of getting to become more of a healthier market. Even if we have more inventory come on the market, I still think we might not necessarily go too much further than that 80 to 90 days on the market, because there's pent up buyers that are just sitting here waiting. But I just want people to know that, the days of 5 days on the market, 10 days on the market, that was kind of unhealthy and what led us to this high interest rate environment. Hopefully it maintains this kind of mid-level 90-day type of thing. But I have seen times where it's been over 6 months. Really have.
Yeah, I agree. This is take away the craziness the last 2 years. 80 days on the market is actually a good, healthy number.
Yeah, got it. All right. Well, hey, for everybody out there that's listening, I just on behalf of Abe, Safa, and myself, want to say happy Thanksgiving to you. We hope you have a great holiday week and take some time off and spend it with loved ones and giving thanks for all the beautiful things that we have in our lives. And then we will be back with you next week. If you have any questions and need any help with real estate, you see our contact information below on the screen, and we would love to earn the right to help you with all of your real estate needs. Abe, thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you all for watching.
Bye-bye.